And we're live. Who all is here so far? Mrs. One-Eyed Cat was in here first. She managed to beat out Lars and Unfinished Project. That was pretty amazing in itself. We've got Matthew, Twisted Mopar Garage Dennis. Mohawk 62, Dust Devil Brian is here. Thank you guys for being here. 6th Street Garage, 38 Racing. He's working and practicing. Crystal Kilgore is here. Bear Rose Garage, howdy. Glad you could make it. My Aunt Nancy says, hope you all are safe from these storms. 38 Racing is asking if Deke takes email tech questions. Yes, if you don't mind, send me a text message and I will make sure to get you that. I do want to have Deke on in the month of June for tech questions. I find that when we do that too early, it doesn't even help because the kind of people who usually need the help passing tech are not going to start on passing tech until August anyway. So the people who are going to pass tech usually have it passed in January as it is. So figured we'd move that to the middle of the year, but we're going to have Deke on for a live on passing tech soon. Buff Del Campo, Lone Wrench Garage, SSR Performance, a.k.a. Big James. Howdy. Lone Wrench Garage running the No Name 500. He's got some ground to cover, but he's got 110 days, 3 hours, 57 minutes to do it, and he definitely can. Pure Pontiac Garage is here. Oh, my gosh. Rich 220 is here. Look at that. Mama M to the third power, a.k.a. Elk Colleen, Mopars, Mustangs, and minivans. I carry because I'm faster than you. No, I carry because I'm not as fast as you. This is I carry because I care. Yeah, I don't know why, but I have that. I've had this shirt for years. Evans Mopar Scott is here. Yeah, no kidding. That was quite a surprise. Scott with an S. Glad you all could make it. I've had a busy week. Hey, while we're waiting for people to file in, for those of you that saw the thumbnail, that is from the staging lanes at Elk Creek Dragway's Memorial Day race, and it was so good to see. The pits were absolutely packed. That place was packed more than I've ever seen it. There were people parked over in the grassy field that they bought many years ago. Pits were packed all the way up past the ticket booth. I thought that was fantastic. It's so good to see that place doing well because there's a lot of drag strips that have closed, and I'm really glad to see that one is doing great. They were having a Gear Jammers race, and they were having the regular brackets and ET stuff, and it was great. It was great to see that place. I hadn't been there in a few years. For those of you who have not been to or seen Elk Creek Dragway, I know that it's local to me. And if you see Streetbox Mike, who's in the chat occasionally, it's local for him as well. Graham Pito Vic is here. Howdy. Good to see you, sir. Ginger Vance is here. Howdy. I will show you. This truck was there, and when I saw it, since he's not here yet, you have to tell him I was showing it. I thought of JB when I saw this. I wish I had focus. I started to put these on screen and then didn't. Let my camera focus. But it's a little S10. Oh, come on, man. Focus on it. There we go. It's red and black, and it's not turbo. He just has wild headers running out the front fenders with a double pumper. It runs 7-something, like 760s. And anyway, you sure can't see the driver's name, but the driver on the door there is Punky. And has fender tires hanging out the bedsides about like Dust Devil Brian there. But anyway, if Brian Breaker and JB, if they were to get band together on making a car, it would be this right here. So, oh, and speaking of Breaker, I saw this too. Here you go. Here you go. Brian, I hope you're watching. I'm not saying this passes tech because Elk Creek is an outlaw track and I've never heard any tech there. Here you go. In the staging lanes. Just for you, Brian. And the car was cool. It's a mid 7-second AMC. Is that neat or what? And they had two of them. And it's got zoomies. So, of course, it was extremely loud. So, yeah. I figured we would get through a few of these. It's a neat car. I liked it. And that thing gets some air under the front tires, too. What's he running there? Hey, it actually looks like is that an AMC engine? It might be. I didn't get close enough to it to tell, but that actually might be AMC powered. Yeah, we're going to find out about the steering wheel. That's right. Well, we're going to find out. We're going to have Deke on for a Tech Live. I've moved it up a little later in the year because I think it's probably going to be more helpful. Crystal Kilgore says, I'm doing better today. I got the tape off and drainage line removed today and no cancer. So that's a blessing. Well, all that sounds positive. That's a good thing. Just Mopar Joe sneaked in here. Howdy. Glad you could make it. We're planning to have Just Mopar Joe on a live stream here. We're going to continue our series. We've done one or two of these biographical lives with Joe. It'll be a little later in the summer. You guys will get a good heads up for that, but it will be something different. Been wanting to do that for quite a while. I'm looking forward to it. Vintage Adventurer Drives. Hello. Pretty sure my local track is an outlaw track. I try to pass tech regardless. If you don't know if it's an outlaw track, it is an outlaw track. Lunar Outlaw Garage. Howdy, glad you're here. And I got my Carb Buddy, the Carb Top Style, in the mail a couple days ago. I have had the world swimming. I did open it and look at it. I need to get that. But yes, I received mine in the mail, and you guys are going to see that pretty soon. I got a great place for it. Danny Boy says he thinks the AMCs were all front distributor. I don't know. Now that you say that, I think you're right. Now that you say that. I didn't get that close to it. I was just walking through when I saw it. Old McDonald has a car. Rabbit Transit J, Bigfoot Mark. Rich has Walter working on his 57 now, as best I know. Maybe not. It might be someone else. Colleen's asking, can we get Nivlak 57 to help Grand Pito Vic? Well, I will tell you, I mean, I haven't seen him ask anything in here. What is the thing? Because there's a lot of people here who could help Grand Pito Vic. I did mention it to Andrew. He called me a day or two ago. Just Mopar Joe says, Dennis is rocking it on that paint and body. Yeah, Dennis does. Dennis gets stuff done. So Breaker says that if his chain steering wheel doesn't pass tech, he's got some options here. So I'm kind of digging that tiny steering wheel. Looks like it'd be hard to steer, but I do like that style of wheel. That style of wheel is definitely my style. Here you go. Here's Pito. He says, this Gen 4 LS, no matter what I do, I get no spark. That's a wiring problem. There's a lot of guys here who do good with wiring. I will tell you, I've done one LS swap and I had no problem. I will say, but Andrew and I mentioned it today, or yesterday, just briefly. We didn't just talking about it. He said to check your grounds. He may be in here anytime. You never know. But whatever you do, get no spark. I would say just in general, check your grounds. That's a big thing when doing any engine swap, especially an engine swap that has a computer. Mean Street Mopar, how's it going, sir? The leader in the No Name 500s. You know, you could just shut the door on that anytime. You're at 378. Chain link wheel, yep. That's a cool setup. That Brian's a cool guy. 2 ECU different harnesses, mini cam and crank sensors. Yeah, but I would check my grounds on all that. I can't tell you how often I see a ground causing that kind of mystery problem, exactly like what you're describing. Dakota says I did the first LS swap. I'll tell you what, I did an early one. It was an early one. It was nearly 30 years ago. There weren't even kits for it then. There was one guy who was starting to make prototypes for the kits. And that was interesting. And I have something of his on the swap I did. I have the prototype. The ones he sold, he did powder coating, and the harness is not a scratch built; it's a converted one. A lot of the parts are kind of like that, but it was a great swap. Joe wants to congratulate Levi for graduating middle school this week. He's the only student there with a Turbo LS in the parking lot. I don't know. I mean, these days he may not be, Joe. Dakota thinks that Danny Boyd escaped the cops one time and his chain link wheel saved him. That's entirely possible. I can see that. Grand Pito Vic says, next week I'm ordering a BP automotive harness. I will say, keep your eyes out. You may see Andrew float through here in a minute and mount some ideas off of here, and we can get you connected. I will say, though, that said, there's a lot of people that can probably help you with an electrical problem like that. I mean, we got some really accomplished mechanics in here. Turbo Tom would be a really good one to ask too, Pito. Turbo Tom be a really good one to ask. Rob's Rods and Streetcars would be a really good one to ask. Twisted Dennis is a good one to ask. A lot of these guys are good ones to ask. Just my little bit of experience, I would tell you, look at your ground. And look at that. We mentioned, it's like Beetlejuice. You mentioned Andrew Nelson 3 times and he appears. I was telling Grand Pito Vic that he has a problem. He cannot get spark on his LS swap no matter what he does. He's had 2 ECUs and 2 different harnesses on it. I told him that you and I had mentioned it and to check his grounds. And when you check your grounds, it's not just check it. Like a ground on a painted surface and that kind of thing is no good. I remember I used to do work on mowers for a friend of mine, and I can't tell you how many mowers we've made run just by putting a supplemental ground to bare metal and all of that, and it just made all the weird intermittent problems go away. Just Mopar Joe puts up the link to Mean Street Mopar. He is leading the No Name 500. He only needs 122 subs. I mean, he could shut the door on this anytime. Aunt D asks, what is the BP harness for? Well, I'm assuming it's for a LS conversion swap. Yeah, Gen 4 swap harness. He's putting it in a Crown Vic. Unfinished Project is suggesting try a new AA in your espresso froth. I'm glad I don't even know what you're talking about there. Vintage Adventure Drive. This might be my favorite comment of the night already. It's only 8:13. I think I've got my favorite comment of the night. He's younger than me. I don't know how old a fella he is. I'm probably old enough to be his dad. And he says, I can't help out your LS swap. I still run points. That gives me hope in the future right there. That comment. I kind of want to pin that. Check the resistance of your ground connection. I say just make sure your ground is right. And it's not on paint. It's not on rust. It's not weak. It's an actual ground strap, ground cable bolted down to the frame. A real ground. Because a lot of factory grounds are junk. At 38 Racing, here's another really accomplished mechanic. I mean, I can't even list them all for leaving people out, like 38 and Just Mopar Joe. We got a lot of really good mechanics in here. But he says no spark, cam and crank signal there, matching crank signal wheel. Yeah. These guys can really help you. We have an awesome crew here, Grand Pito. I would start just feeling out this chat section. Right here. Okay, mystery buffer over there. Pito says, I scraped the surfaces for my grounds. I'm going to add more and run them back to the battery. It's on an engine stand, not in the car. Just wanted to run it before I put it in the car. Yeah, yeah. I would ground that to the battery. Twisted Dennis says, my first guess is ground on the coil packs. That very well could be. Yeah, but you guys feel free to weigh in on this. Let's give him some ideas, and then we can go offline and try to get him more help as needed, because as a community, we're going to help him get that thing running. Because that's what this community does. And everybody who's ever wanted to play nicely in this community has gotten their stuff running. There's nobody who hasn't. Aunt D says, had to install several additional grounds on 80s Fords for voltage regulator and ignition module. Oh, yeah, those 80s Fords had some of the worst grounds ever because they put them right on the paint, and they had a little self-tapper on them. They were bad. Barrow's got you. You're at $379 now, Mean Street Mopar. Dakota says, I think I got a few LS engines stuck in my Trans Am mufflers. It could be. So Pito says, I replaced the sensors twice and found a short in the cam, so I changed the harness. 58X crank and dead center on the crank sensor hole. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what that is. Andrew Nelson says, have you seen a crank signal? Exactly. Vintage Adventure Drive says, I'm only 25, been running points so I started. Right on, man. Good for you. If I had known this comment was coming, I would have worn my I Love Breaker Points shirt. It's even Bakelite brown. He says, as soon as I turn the engine over, the fuel pump pops off. I need to hook it up to the laptop. Well, you got fuel pressure, it sounds like. Mohawk suggested maybe ground the engine stand. Yeah, if it's on an engine stand, you got a good chance it's just a ground. It's probably all it is, man. Joe's suggesting no Bigfoot Mark. If you need to run down and pick up his blue beater truck, you can run it at No Name Nationals. He might be stuck in the body shop with his car. You never know. I got to tell you, though, I miss seeing the Jack Pine Savage prowling around the grounds at No Name Nationals. I love that. We need to see Mr. Foot coming in with another nice, pretty, mellow car like that. Vito says, I'm going to add a bunch of grounds. I'm going to add an earth ground with a rod from the back. Sounds like you can't miss that. Mark says, we might wind up taking that offer. Tell you one thing, Joe not only gets his stuff done every year, he has a reserve done every year. I got to tell you, though, I really admire Joe. And for those of you who don't know, if there had been a No Name 500 in 2019, Joe and I would have been in that class, so to speak. And so I've had this on my wall for years here. It says, excuses are the tools of incompetence. That's a quote from Joe. It's even in the colors of his race car. Joe gets stuff done. I'd like to think he's a really good role model for this community. Most of you guys know, obviously, who Joe is, but he's a good person, too. Andrew says 24 and 58 sensors are pinned different. Now we got some esoteric knowledge flowing here. Here we go. Oh, he says you got to bring it back full of fuel. So in other words, Joe's going to siphon that thing down to there's a teaspoon of gas in it, just enough for you to get it on the trailer and get going. I miss the Jack Pine. Me too. And one of these years, if Mark still has that shirt floating around, I'm going to be able to get that shirt from him. Yeah. 7 layers maximal, Joe. Remember? Bigfoot's and Mopar says he was invited to visit Tom, the Jack Pine Savage himself. We'll do a video. He says the car is officially retired. We'll do a video of the car. At least it got to run it to No Name Nationals as part of its story. I hope he thought that was cool. Turbo Tom 416 is here. Turbo Tom, we got an LS no spark diagnosis going on in the comments. And Technician Troy, of all times for you to pop up. Good to see you too. So we got an LS no spark diagnosis going on in the comments. And I was telling Pito, we got a lot of really accomplished mechanics in here. And sure enough, Turbo Tom and you show up at the same time. So I'm telling you, this is the good place to ask. Yeah, I mean, I always leave my stuff up. You can read it on replay, but I'll take some notes because there's a lot of brain power in here. We got a lot of really smart guys in here. Vintage Adventure Drive says, I'll probably have my Scamp running before No Name Nationals. I could take it, but I'm apparently the first Triple Crown contestant who's run their car. I'll probably just stick to my satellite backup, I guess. Well, do what you think, man. You'll see stuff coming out of the woodwork closer to time. Bobby Frizzell is here, stopped in really quickly to say hello while grabbing a bite to eat. He's 350 miles into an 800-mile road trip in his 68 Ford wagon. How's it going so far? Let's see here. Yeah, can you try a different computer? If you have lots of them laying on the shelf, that's when you only work on one make and you got lots of hard disks, lots of computers. It does make it nice to be able just to try stuff like that. Other than running into a small storm, it's been great. Yeah, I had rain. I had to run from Bluefield to Salem today, and it poured rain all the way to Christiansburg. And as soon as the weather got nice, I hit a traffic backup, and I barely got where I needed to go in time. I had to pick up some auction stuff, which I can show you guys actually. I'll show you my findings here. I don't think I got to show anybody this. So most of the stuff at the auction went for just too much. This kind of did too, but I wanted it. I wound up paying $100 for that. It is an old school wash tank. Yes, the Dark Sports in the background, just for you, Unfinished Project. It's an old handy clean wash tank, and it works and everything. But I wanted that style, and I grabbed it. Most stuff went for too much money. There was some really cool stuff there. The other thing I actually wound up winning. I gave next to nothing for it. It was a good deal on this. I needed that torch because mine, the button's broken, and that one looks new. But I also got a lot of other stuff in there for $20. So I said, hey, you can't beat that. Yeah, a bunch of blades and some pruners, a scraper, and yeah, it's okay. That's all right. $20. But anyway, my first swap, not my first engine. Yeah, most people, their first engine is not their first swap. My first engine was an '89 Hyundai Excel. The thing about StreamYard is it never wants to use the up arrow. So I have to go back and scroll it manually. One-Eyed Cat says, Marty's Hot Rod Garage is helping me build it. He was wondering what kind of numbers it have. 525 lifts sound about right. If Joe sent you that, he should know. Might have a cam card on it or something. I'm thinking Joe told me, but I'd have to scroll back through so much stuff, I'd never find it. Evans Mopar says, can I ask a question also? Of course. Put a new key in ignition in a 79 Dodge truck. Turn the key in nothing. But will turn over with a screwdriver on the starter relay. Well, so obviously your starter circuit works. I would check, just off the top of my head, I would check and make sure you have 12 volts to your solenoid switch. Put your voltmeter on your solenoid switch, have somebody turn the key, see if it gets 12 volts there. It probably isn't. I'd be looking at that. Definitely not your starter. And I'm going to assume, we know what assume means, but the fact that it'll turn over with a screwdriver means your battery probably has 12 volts. I will say, I've never been a fan of diagnosing, assuming stuff is good. So like when I first started electrical diagnosis, I don't care what it is. I take my meter, go straight across the battery and make sure I've got 12.6 right there. And if I don't, I stop right there. Because there's too many things that just, I just don't like diagnosing. I've gotten burned like that too many times assuming. I like really good grounds on stuff, P2. I really do. If I'm making a negative cable for the battery, it's like usually a double-aught big old cable. Dakota says the first engine he ever had was a Pontiac 455. Cool, man. I was in my 40s before I had a big block anything. Must work really well. Your nails look clean. The only thing I've done with it is loaded on a trailer. I just haven't been working on anything. Well, houses, but they don't get your nails nasty like working on cars. Dean says that the wind in New Zealand peaked at 106.25 miles an hour at 5:20 in the morning on the South Island of New Zealand's, was it Otago Peninsula? That is one place I'm glad I wasn't. Check your ground with continuity. Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. But that said, even when I test a ground with continuity, for whatever, I just don't trust that quite the same as I do taking it apart and cleaning it also. But yeah, you can check it with continuity too. Professor P profiled it but never got me. Well, ask him. He's got to have a card on that. Has to. And you can check the lift on it anyway. You don't need anybody to do that. You can check the lift on it easy enough. Put your dial indicator there on your lifter. Or if you've already got it assembled, just turn it by hand, of course. You can put it on your retainer, but I don't like that because then you're kind of dependent on multiplying it through your rocker arm. I would rather check it at the cam, put it on a lifter, and rotate it over. Solid lifter if you have it, even if it's a hydraulic cam. If you're checking the lift, I do it with a solid lifter, if you can do that. Battery's 13.7 and the coil positive is 12.9. Boy, that's a lot for a battery just sitting there. Usually your battery is, when the alternator's not charging it, usually your battery is 2.1 volts per cell, and there's 6 of them in series for 12.6 usually. That's reading a little higher than still. I'd go with it though. Barrow says my first engine swap was ditching a 1200 VW for a 1635 single port. Well, yeah, but I don't even call that an engine swap. That's easiest one I've done in a gravel driveway at 13. Yeah, I'd take it. That's 1635 single port. Yep. In fact, I had one that was done that one way down too when I got it. Vintage Adventure Drive says I made my ground cables on the Scamp 1 gauge. It works well. Yeah, oh yeah, that'll work. I think a Ford truck, like a factory one on that, is a 6 gauge. And to me, that is just too small for that, in my opinion. Dean says, personally, I blame the wasabi and chili I had last night. 38 says, my first engine was a 64 327. Danny Boyd has a nonsensical comment that says, I've never owned a big block unless you count Ford 300s. That is not a big block, sir. Graham Pito says, bad ground will probably mean I'm dropping voltage and it can't run everything. A bad ground is an incomplete circuit. A ground is just as important part of the circuit as the positive is. It's one big circuit. Vintage Adventure Drive says, I bought my first big block at 19. I bought my first big block car at 24, 2 weeks before my birthday. Cool. Rabbit Transit J says, you're getting storms by you? No, we had storms earlier. I drove through the rain for about an hour today, and then it stopped raining, but it did stop raining long enough for me to load up a parts washer tank that I bought. So, yeah, man, anytime. And if you still don't get what you need from what you've seen here, shoot me an email and we'll get you hooked up. We'll get you taken care of. Old McDonald says, I have 12 subs with no content, 488 more. Well, you're not registered either, so. You can spectate or you can jump in and make it happen. Joe has an email on it. Cool. If you've not yet checked out Joe's video where he gives a shop tour of his new shop, that's really cool. I'm super happy for him. Andrew Nelson says, my first engine swap was a 54 235. Oh my, I'm old. Yeah. Anytime, Pito. We appreciate you. Twisted Mopar Garages, I got my first high-performance vehicle in 74, a 64 VW Beetle. Cool. I like that. A 64 VW Beetle. That would be the last year of the small window cars. You have to be a Volkswagen nerd like me to even know this, but the glass on the Volkswagen got bigger for the 65 model year. They made the pillars a little bit smaller and the glass a little bit more. And it's subtle. You have to know what you're looking for, and I've seen a few of those cars to even notice. But the year for that, the first year, the bigger windows was 65. And I've always been a fan of 64 and down with the smaller windows. I mean, everybody knows the really old ones had split windows up to 52 and then an oval window from 53 to 57. But I've always kind of liked the square back window of 58. But that one was 58 to 64. Then in 65, they made all the glass bigger. And then I think it was 71 was the first year you could get a curved windshield on the Super Beetle. I think that was the year 71. But my favorite are the 58 to 64 small glass Beetles. So that 64 Twisted Mopar Garage had, that's my favorite run of those cars. And 62 was the first year they had a gas gauge. 61 and back, literally what those cars had, they had a thing on your foot you moved over so that if you ran out of gas, you went to the reserve tank and you could restart it and keep going. 1962, before they had a gas gauge. Old McDonald said, on the electric grid, a ground or neutral is treated the same as a live wire. Well, I'll tell you, it's just as important. 38's asking for anyone on a CV boot, the crimp style clamps. What's the proper name for that style? The kind I hate to deal with, but I don't know what the proper name for them is. Somebody will know. He used to rebuild them and can't remember. yeah, I don't remember. This one time at band clamp, oh no, that's something else. All right, Joe says the lobes are very close to the old crane specs. 254, 354s. I don't know what that means. They are hydraulic. You could run them as a tight lash solid. Yeah, okay. Vintage Adventure Drive says, my Pinto got outrun by a 69 Beetle with a Cam 1600. He got me in 60 foot and kept a 2-car lead down in Mexico. Those cars can run, and they're really light. Danny Boyd's talking electricity. A little more than I know. I don't know a lot about household electricity, or any electricity for that matter. I know enough to respect it. Joe says the specs are duration at 50, 254 on a 108 LSA. John, I hope you want that thing to thump because it's going to. that's a lot of cam. Your lobe is 354, so with a 1.5 rocker, that's 531 at the valve. That is all you're going to do probably without cutting pistons. And that's per Professor P. So there you go. There's your cam card, Don. Andrew Nelson says, our VW that we ran Finnegan in the Arcade General Mayhem was a 68. Bruce, he says, my first car was a puke green 59 Rambler. I wasn't able to pick up any girls with it, even though the push-button gear selector really interested them. You know what? I've changed my mind. Now, this might be my favorite comment of the night. Here's something very un-Bruce-like. You'll enjoy this. Bruce, I picked this up at auction today. It's an old school handy clean parts washer. Probably as old as I am. I thought it was cool. I can clean my greasy parts with that. Anyway, I have more pictures to show you guys from the Dragway. I had yet to get a chance to. I saw this. I don't know if that's a real Hemi car or not, a real deal Hemi Barracuda, but there is and I don't know why I can't get my camera focused on this, but it has on the quarter window 1968 NHRA contestant World Series Championship. Now, I don't know about the history of the car. If any of you guys do, let me know. Chuck Hilton Racing. But that was at Elk Creek for Gear Jammer weekend. 68 Barracuda, Hemi car, beautiful car. I know that there's probably 10 clones for every one original at least, but it was there. Also, Elk Creek has a winner's circle. It also has a loser's circle. So, and I thought this was really cool. They put up a memorial for racers who have died over the years. Not people at the track per se, but just people who have died for different reasons. And I thought it was really cool that they included my late friend there, Robert Krieger. He was part of the Gear Jammers. And I'm glad he would see him on that memorial there. His widow hadn't seen it, but I sent it to her. And there was a Tesla. And that thing was fast. All factory, everything. It ran a 761 in the heat of the day. Thought that was pretty neat. Vintage Adventure Drive says, my first car was a 76 Gran Torino. I still haven't gotten that car running. Well, it's time. Of course, we can't say anything. We're all older than you. Spiffy, indeed. Old McDonald said, little did you know that VW Beetle had 5 friends hiding in the truck to slow you down. Yeah, it might have. I can't imagine what 5 people could get in the trunk in the front of a VW Beetle. Old parts washers and methyl chloride account for a lot of how my brain works now. You need dry cleaning fluid. I'm sure that parts washer, as old as it is, had dry cleaning bar saw in it. Mohawk said, I had a big shock when I traded my beautiful little 58 Bug for a 67 Belvedere with a 383 4-barrel. What a change. Now I did the passing instead of getting passed. Those Beetles can move. If they're built right, they can. They have a lot of gear, and they don't weigh anything. But I'll tell you, those cars just aren't meant to run like that. They're really... Like the engine block on a Beetle, most of you guys here probably know, but for those who don't, the block on a Beetle is actually bolted together around the crank and cam. And it works, I mean, for something that makes 50 horsepower, but those things just, you can't do but so much with them with that kind of engine design. They're not meant to really put that much stress to. Excuse me. Rabbit Transit J says, we used to go field hopping in a 73 Super Beetle, bouncing over petrified cow dung. That sounds like the most up north Midwest thing ever. That's a total Wisconsin thing if I've ever heard it. Pito says, late 90s when rebuilt CV axles and such had Varsol in it. I miss the smell. I don't miss the smell for anything. Dizzy Izzy is here. Hello. Colleen says, my first car was a 71 Charger. Go figure. Is that the 71 Charger you still have? I'm guessing it is. Yeah, I don't know how people feel about that, to see that Tesla running a 761 box stock, just rolls in there, runs it effortlessly. I'll tell you what I did find interesting, though. You would think for an electric motor that it would get out there really quick, but it was running another car that ran about the same, but no, it had to reel it in. So there must be something in a Tesla that when you stomp on the gas, pulls the voltage back so that it doesn't launch as hard, because it was running another car running mid-sevens, a really close race, and yet it was behind a few car lengths at the 60, or not, maybe not a few at the 60, but it was behind a few to half track, and then it reeled it in. So I don't know. It must be something the way they do the drivability with the Teslas. Graham Pito is going to go chase grounds. Cool, man. Let us know. Dizzy said that my first engine swap was helping his brother-in-law put a 396 Chevy in a 210 postcar. Well, that sounds like a worthy swap. Mohawk said that 58 was an original 1192, a whole whopping 36 horsepower. Yep, that will be it. The 1200 is what they called it. No, Colleen, no, it's a different one. She bought her midlife crisis and bought one to restore. How long's it been in paint jail now, Colleen? Busy put that in a 55 Chevy. There was a 55 Chevy sitting in a garage back here about one street over for at least 20 years. And now I noticed last week it's gone. The tarp was down and then it was just gone. So somebody did finally manage to buy it, I guess. Indirect connection Jason is here. Well, I resemble that remark too, Colin. We're all in the same boat. Danny Boyd said, my midlife crisis began in the 10th grade or so. I don't know what I'd call that. Your midlife crisis began in the 10th grade. You were 30 getting to 10th grade. Bobby Frizzell is sharing photos from his drive. Oh, look at this. This is a fun picture. So here's his wagon. He's at the Holiday Inn Express. If they ask him, you know, can you do brain surgery or rocket science? He'll say no, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Joe says, I'm going to paint Mark's car before No Name Nationals 26. It'll get painted before the machine work gets done. How about that? Vintage Adventure Drive says, I have every car I've ever owned. That's pretty cool. At 25 years old, yeah. I can't say that because one car I had at 16 was a parts car 72 Duster, and it was extremely rusty. Today, somebody would fix it, but then no one would. He is a 67 Ford F-250. I love it. 71 Satellite, 72 Impala, 73 Wagon, 74 Scamp, and a 76 Grand Trio. That's a good fleet. I like it. And you know what else that tells me? That's every car you've ever owned. Now, do you own anything newer than that? What else do you own? Brazil's wagon looks awesome. I'm sure it is. Everything Bobby owns is awesome. It's getting stormed on now, so it looks shiny, yes. Andrew Nelson, he poos on the midlife crisis. Says, I'm not growing up, and if I do have a midlife crisis, it will be epic. Truer words have never been spoken. If Andrew Nelson has a midlife crisis, Katie bar the door. I can only imagine what he would build for that. Yeah, if you feel that coming on, let us know. Mohawk says his first engine was a 250 Chevy Inline 6. Cool. Very good. Captain Do, welcome. I found out I'm going to use my thermoquad on my engine. I need to upgrade the camshaft and thinking of using a comp thumper for a 318. Okay. Now, a comp thumper, but is that a whole series or is that what specs? What's it going to be? Just Mopar Joe says, I'll have an upgraded booth. Yes, Joe has a paint booth. He's putting a permanent paint booth in his new shop and a build room. So, yeah. Backdraft, clean air, sealed room, pressurized, and lots of lighting. Colleen says, my newest vehicle is a 2003. Yeah, I have an 02 CRV, and it's too new. Oh boy, Jay's going to open a can of worms question here. How many cars has everyone had? My last count was 73 or 76. I'm sitting at 18 or 19. That is every car. I have nothing else. Satellite and Impala and the Pinto are the dailies. Right on, man. Right on. I love it. You live the life. Good for you. Of course, modern vehicle is a 2002 CRV with 368,000 miles on it, but to me, that's too modern, but I like it. It does a lot of stuff. It really does do a lot of stuff. Kim fixes things. I'm stuck on the side of the road with a fuel problem. Buff to the rescue. Well, there you go. What part of the side of the road? You should text me a picture and I'll show everybody here. You can show them what you're stuck looking at. I have no way answering that, Captain Do. I mean, we don't know your specs. We don't know your engine. Thumper doesn't mean a thing. What's your engine? What are your specs? Andrew Nelson's had well over 200 cars. Danny Boyd says 20 or so. Justin Hill is here from the frigid wasteland of Idaho. Thanks for joining us. Just Mopar Joe's going to have a floor drain. Yep, I can understand that. But Joe, what's the flood situation like around your new shop? I always kind of wonder that. And when you said drain, I thought about that. Kim lost track on cars 15 years ago. 38 says over 40 currently. I would have thought you'd have more than that, as much stuff as you've scrapped. Dizzy says around 45. I haven't gotten to 20 yet. I think 18 is it for me. And some of that's what I've inherited. A few. Excuse me. I haven't had a cough all day, and I get it as soon as this live starts. I wonder what in the world's up with that. Mohawk says, I have titled in my name and have driven 798 cars since I was 15 years old. What is up with that? I've got to know. Scott says, I'm at 30 cars now, had at least 100, 6 Challengers at one time. Well, now, wait a minute. If this is in Heaven's Mopar Scott condition, is it really about like 4.7, with 6 VINs? Is that, I mean... Twisted Mopar says, in high school, I owned 15 Ford cars and trucks and drove the Beetle. Andrew says they've got 22 now. 24. Make that 24. 24, gosh. Ron Ward is here. Howdy, sir. 11 cars for me, the newest of which is a 2001, and the oldest is a 62. Make that 12. Yeah, I know. You start counting and you forget. I'm pretty sure that I'm at 18, I think. And it's funny that y'all asked that when I had just, for whatever reason, tried to add that up. And that number might even be right. Lunar says, I've sold a good chunk of my collection at the beginning of last year. I have something like 7. That sounds much more sensible than most of us, actually. Captain Deuce said his engine is an 85 5th Avenue 18 and 90. Me-range factor. If it's a stock 318, that's not a lot of compression in that. I don't know, and your cam specs will have a lot to do with that still. I like the Holly 1920. What's wrong with that? Vintage Adventure Drives is thinking about buying the girlfriend a 73 Dart with a 318. What does she think about that? Okay, Dan just listed them and came up with 20 again. You could post a list. That might be interesting. Joe says they used a dozer and laser to make everything flat. Then we popped up the building and put a driveway between the shop and the lowest place on the property. It'll be good soon. Cool. All right. I just know that you're in a pretty flat area of the country where you are. If my property floods, if any of my property floods, the rest of the world is dead. I don't have anything that's not up on top of a hill. Everything I have is on a hill. I have one property that's not up on top of a hill. And if it floods, it won't matter at all. Well, Rob, you just missed trying to diagnose a LS no start. The chat thinks it's bad grounds. I am curious about using that laser leveling. I know a guy who used to do it with that, and I just thought that was cool. I kind of want to get a spot leveled out back here at the house. I'm kind of thinking of putting a little building back here. I really don't like it for this lot, but there's a dude down the street that has a garage on a lot. Instead of having a house, it's like 2 house lots with no house, just a garage. It's perfect. And I can walk to it, just a few houses down from me. And every year I stop by there and just, hey man, if you're ever thinking of selling, I don't want to annoy him, but I sure hope he thinks of me first if he ever wants to sell it. Joe puts up a link. Here's Rob's drive shaft carnage. So check that out. Yeah, Rob, we think it's grounds. It could be, but Pito's going to check all that out and let us know. Heavens Mopar says, my first automobile was an 89 Bronco 2, 2.85 speed. Those are cool. I kind of like those. I think they're neat. Heavens Mopars has a near rust-free, clean and straight one for sale. $4,000 best offer, but it's slant 6 with AC. That's actually pretty cool. It's also on the other side of the country. $73 is cool. I got to say, I like them. Andrew Nelson says, does our collection sound better if we have 4 8-second hammers? Your collection's cool as it is. And people know your stuff's not lazy. Your stuff is fast. Mohawk says, I have had 32 vehicles just since I met Crystal. That's wild. You've had 792 vehicles titled to you since you were 15. Well, if Mohawk 62 is the year you were born, if that is, I don't know how old you are, but let's just say that is. That makes you 63. That means 63 minus 15. That's 48 years. And we divide 798 by 48. That's 16 a year for 48 years. Cutter Down Garage 303, missing the sound of a Mopar starter in my life. I miss that sound. Funny you'd say that. I remember when I was a kid, one thing I liked in that show, The Dukes of Hazzard, is I liked the sound that the Charger made when they started it. You could hear that starter sound on the General Lee. And I know they dubbed in engine sounds from other stuff. I know they did that on the show in production, but I know for a fact that a lot of those shows, you would hear you'd hear that gear reduction Mopar starter on those cars. I didn't know what it was back then, but I remember hearing it. It was very cool. Mostly Old Parts Wrong Ward says, Culinary Tech Tip 412, get an air fryer. You know what? A lot of people tell me that, and I might have to do that. I'm hearing too many people talk about how much they like them. Joe says it's a necessity. Okay. Ron says it. Joe says it. Don English says it. Now I have to do it. Crystal says, yes, he's an old man. Is he a cradle robber? What are you, Crystal? 27? Mostly Old Parts swapped out to a mini starter to clear the headers, and the Roadrunner will never go back. I know the mini starter, everything is better about a Dakota starter. The room is better, all of that. I get that. But man, I like the sound of the factory Mopar starters. Those huge, heavy, in the way of everything starters. I know, but I just like the sound of them. Although on a race car, it doesn't really matter. You don't get to hear the gears wind down because the engine's so loud. But if I had a factory one with manifolds, there's no way I'd run the mini starter because I wouldn't want to lose that cool sound of the starter. $798. We're not worthy. Yeah. I bet you in that collection, Mohawk, you had a lot of 10s and a lot of 2s. Am I right? Danny Boyd says, I was a Ricer when Ricer wasn't cool. Well, it's still not cool here, but whatever. No. All right, Honda people, bring the hate. No, I respect people who actually build the cars. That I do. Vintage Adventure Drive is about 50 miles west of Oklahoma City. Cool. Rabbit Transit Garage says it's funny. Every car starting in older movies seemed to be a motor starter, no matter the make of the car. I don't know. I do know that in the old episodes of Dukes of Hazzard, you would clearly hear that Mopar starter on the General Lee. I always thought it was cool. But then, like the chase scenes and stuff, you know, they had engine noise dubbed in when you clearly would not hear the engine at the distance and all they were shooting. They just dubbed it in. And for those of you who don't know, if you're interested in that kind of weird Dukes of Hazzard trivia, for those who don't know, I did have a couple of years ago Tom Sarmento, who was a mechanic for Warner Brothers for seasons 2 through the end of the Dukes of Hazzard, who helped build those cars and maintain them. And so a lot of those kind of questions came up, all kinds of weird stuff. What carburetors those cars ran, you know, what all they built them out of. He knew all of that stuff because he's one of the ones who did it. So you can go back and look at that. And if one of the mods wants to pop up a link to that live stream I had with Tom Sarmento, you can. I actually spoke to him not long ago, and he wants to come back on. So we'll have him back on sometime. It was great. It's about time to do that again. Crystal, you're 47 until November? We'll go with that. Most of the old parts says, however, the song Manic Mechanic by ZZ Top features a Mopar gear reduction starter in the intro. Wow. Okay, now I need to check that out. I got to say, I like those starters for nostalgic reasons, but I have one sitting on top of a filing cabinet in the garage, and every time I see that thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, that starter is entirely too big. And it is. And they're so heavy. Oh my gosh, they're so heavy. Okay, Kim sent a photo on the roadside. Here we go. In front of the fit shop. Well, you're not really on the roadside. You are in a lot somewhere, and that's with the dart, see? At the fit. Oh, it's a gym. Okay, the fit shop. Okay, cool. So that's where Kim is stranded. All right, Buff. Get over there, fix it. Let us know what it is. If you don't have it fixed in the hour, you can stream the fix. One of you holding the light, the other one fixing it. Good news is how much can be wrong on a slant 6 dart like that? Can't be much. I mean, like the worst it could possibly be is the pump, and that's easy to change. "38 digs the song. Vintage Adventure Drive says, I'm about to head out from work to pick up an aluminum big block water pump housing. Very good. Mohawk says, only one time in my life, I was 17, I had to walk to work. After that, I said, never again. So I have never had less than 3 running vehicles in my yard. That's pretty amazing to have never fewer than 3. That's really good, actually. I can't even say that at the moment because the van radiator. I'll tell you what will be a good one to do, but I don't know that I want to participate in it. How many of you of the vehicles you have run? And when I say run, it doesn't mean run except this, run except that. Well, I got to get a battery out of this. Well, you know, I got to stick the carburetor on. That's all I got to do. No, none of that. I mean run as in you can take the key and nothing but a key and go to it, sit down and start it, and it will run, drive, stop, steer, and all that. By that definition of run, not even jump start it, how many would you have? That would be an awfully low number because you say to guys runs, oh, they'll count this broad definition that has doing all kinds of stuff. It's close to running. I mean, I've seen people claim their cars run when they haven't run in years, and they claim they run. Twisted Mopar says, the car I miss most is a 75 Roadrunner. Tried to buy it back, not going to have. 75 Roadrunner is an uncommon car. They're cool, though. They're just really different. Danny Boyd remembers reading an interview with Dusty in a guitar magazine that had an old Darter Valiant which will go where Jeeps fear to tread. I don't believe that at all. I just don't believe that at all. I have one of each here, and I don't see that whatsoever. What are we talking about? A Jeep Compass or something? I mean, not a real Jeep. For those of you running a Denso style mini starter, I uploaded a video on how to repair them. Good info and part numbers included. Fantastic. That's great. 38 Racing says some of the Generals had Chevy engines from what I heard. I've never heard that. I don't think that's true. I do not think that's true. I think Tom would have told us that, and he knows. He would know. He worked on all of them. He could definitively answer that. So I'll tell you what, 38, I want to have him back on this year. I talked to him not long ago. He wants to come back on. We'll have him back on, and you can ask that very question. But I don't think that's true. I don't think any of them had Chevy engines. One of them had a manual transmission, exactly one, and it was used in a stunt jump. And Al Wyatt said the shifter handle broke off in his handle. I think that's who it was that was driving it. But there's all kinds of weird mythological stuff on the Dukes of Hazzard. But Tom's a good one to have to answer these questions because he actually knows. Captain Deuce says in Duke Season 2, the carb from the General Lee was a Carter AFB or Holly. The carburetor that was run on the General Lee, and I don't know what could have been on some of them when they bought them, but I'll tell you, their go-to carburetor they put on all of them was a 450 Holly. That's what they put on all of them. Busted Radio Garage says, it's been a while. What's up, everyone? Howdy. I saw a community post where you were going to Georgia. It just popped up in my feed today. Glad you're here, Chris. Thanks for stopping by, man. Andrew Nelson says the big block Chevy in the 2-lane 55 was used to dub 4 or 5 different movies. Yeah, I've heard that. Makes sense. A lot of people would watch that movie and remember that sound. So, yeah. Mohawk said, I was 23. The state of Illinois told me if I sold or bought one more car that year, I'd have to get a dealer's license. In Virginia, it's 6. But I've never gotten anywhere near that. Indirect Connection says, all jump cars have big blocks. The rest were 318. And generally, that's not true. There were jump cars with 318s. There sure were. And some of them even had some nitrous on them. The Chevelle on the list. Yeah, the Chevelle, I think, was part of the original imagining for the Charger. But yes, there were some small block jump cars. The big block jump was preferred for jump cars because they had more power. But they actually, I know it sounds weird, like something you would just hear made up that wasn't really true. But yeah, they actually did put some nitrous on some of them to give them more oomph for that. Again, that live I had with Tom Sarmento is a good one because this is exactly his area of expertise. But I'm going to have him on again, and so you guys can ask some of these questions. Because, again, it's been a few years, so we've got some new folks in the audience, and some of you older folks may have some more questions for him. Glad to have him on. Most of the old parts wrong. Ward says, speaking of classic Mopar sounds, add the thermoquad and the squeaky door hinges and that horrible trunk hinge sound to the list. You are not kidding. That trunk hinge sound is the worst on the old Chryslers, but I wouldn't trade it. Like, I remember when I drove my Dart daily, you just pop that trunk and you'd hear that sound. Oh yeah, you can just tell. Indirect Connection says, aside from my truck, the Belvedere will get you anywhere and back. The Satellite will get you there. The rest is a mystery. Well, it's like that time I took the Jeep to the Jeep show. I said, well, I don't have any expectation of actually making it. Barrow says, by that definition, 2, counting the wife's daily. I'm too cheap to buy more than one battery. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. 38 says, I think I've got 7 or 8 connect the battery and drive cars. See, but that's what I'm talking about. I think it's probably all about the tires. Well, see, I'd be in trouble too. Yeah, I had, by that strict a definition, I had 3, and then the van radiator, so I have 2 now. Dan says, I have 4 vehicles and 3 good batteries. Okay, Andrew says, I have to adjust our number to 27. Oh, wait, we've gone from 22 to 24 to 27? 13 run and drive. Yeah, well, see, I would expect that out of the Nelson Nivlak camp there, yeah. Kim says, I hope I just need fuel, but might be. You mean you ran out of gas? Is that what you're talking about? Danny Boyd says 450 CM. What? CFM? Yes, 450 is a Holly 450. That was their go-to carburetor on those cars. The General had drum front brakes. It had whatever those cars had on them. I was thinking 69 Chargers, a lot of them had disc brakes, actually. I know that a 69 or 68 Charger manual front disc was a weird combination, and that's the master cylinder you want if you want a factory master cylinder with a manual disc brake conversion. That's one of the few things that had it. It's the 68 Charger. And so there's a dude who has that casting reproduced. And that's what I got for the Dart Sport, because I wanted a factory-looking master cylinder. Ron says, in my opinion only, the Holly 3310-1 780 CFM vacuum secondary is the best all-around carburetor ever created. It'll run great on everything from a mild 283 Chevy to a hot 440. That is a great carburetor indeed. Here's some trivia that I hope doesn't push anything useful out of your brain, but we now all know it nonetheless. 111 is our 911 call number in New Zealand. See, I don't like that because it'd be too easy to pocket dial something like that. Captain Deuce says only one General Lee was a true RT, and it was Lee number 3. I don't know. Lee number 3 would have been a Georgia car. Lee 1 was a gold 383. Lee 1, I think that's right. It was green when it was last used as a wrecked car, and then that's where it was abandoned and found by Travis Bell. I also have a live stream with Travis Bell on my channel a couple of years ago. Also, you can look at that one. We had a sit-down interview with Travis Bell, the guy who found the original Lee 1 in the junkyard and had it restored. Then once it was restored, it was sold to professional golfer Bubba Watson. But so I had questions about Lee 1 as it was found, and to settle a bet with John Cope as to whether or not it was the actual car was restored or scavenged. And I'm glad I was wrong. Cope was right. They did use the original body. And so, but anyway, we interviewed Travis Bell about that. You can see that on my channel as well if you want to know anything more about Lee number 1. He's the guy to ask. Ron says batteries are overrated, manual transmission cars, and a downhill driveway for the win. Except when you have a car that runs a bunch of electronics. I tried that once. Didn't have enough battery to make that work either. Suspect the tank is leaking again. I will say I have fixed a leaking gas tank with JB Weld one time in my life, and it never leaked again. I was very pleasantly surprised how well that worked. It's something I probably would never let myself even try now. Diecast Dreams Vic says, hope everyone's well. Poking his head in to say howdy and wish everyone well. Hello, Vic. Dean Stevenson says the RAV4 Ford TFI on a Mega Squirt with the old Denso distributor as a trigger. Okay, I don't even know what that is. This is from the auction I went to, in case you guys are curious. A buddy of mine was looking at that transmission jack. It went for too much money, but it's a good one. I would have gotten these, but they were too much. I wasn't going to do it. It had taken $15 to buy these airbags. I was looking for a couple to set off and make some content with, but there's a teardown table. I almost regret not grabbing that one. I think things went for a fuzz too much this auction, but that was a cool teardown table. This went for like $400, and it's way too bulky. That's another kind of teardown table, a rolling cart, but it went for way too much. The build table was cooler, I thought. A couple old quadrojets there. Dallas says he has plenty of cores. I did try to grab that set of bushing drivers. It just went for a bit too much, in my opinion. That set went for a lot. I'm surprised what some of this stuff brought, actually. Captain Deuce says the center car on the General Lee is a logo of Carroll Shelby Cap, not the American Racing close-up. I don't know what that means. I can't follow your comment there, man. I know that it was too costly to replicate that cross flag setup that's on the it was underneath the rear window, so they didn't do that after season 1. Danny Boy says I'd spend $15 for a sacrificial airbag right now. Yeah, this would have been a pair of them for that. I'll find some. I'm going to do some airbag stuff for some content. Who knows? We might set some off live. If I do another live from over at Larry's Pneumatic Service, maybe we'll set some off live. See if we can get one to go higher than the top of the building. Victor has found an instrument cluster for stone soup, and it's on his way to the house. Okay, so you'll have some instrumentation now. Mohawk said I had a non-working gauge on my 64 darts. After months of guessing the gas level, I found the tank had a metal strap thing that jumps the rubber hose of the gas line ground. Yeah, they have a ground on them. The way the gauge works, it works off resistance. It's got a little scale that goes back and forth to resistance wiring. How much of that the current travels through tells it how much fuel is in it. Yeah, and Ron says that strap is absolutely necessary. That is correct. There were 3 Georgia General Lee cars from the first 5 episodes using. There were either 5 or 6. I think there were 6 total Georgia cars. I don't know about the center cap thing. I don't know about that. I don't know what that is. Tom worked on the 2nd season and up in California. It's amazing how much legend and crazy stuff there is out there about those cars. Yeah, PIP picture in picture. It's the only thing that comes to my mind, too. Crystal says that doesn't stop him from running out of gas. He's still running out of gas. I run out of gas about once every 10 years. That's about how often I do that. I ran out of gas one time in my buddy's truck. That was no fun. Fortunately, it was right here in town, not too far up here in Christiansburg, and a neighbor was so kind as to give me a ride, gas can, top it up. Okay, I got out of that one. Then once I ran out my buddy's Camaro, and that was just dumb on my part. I just guess I didn't have in my mind how much fuel was in it. The gauge on the car was never accurate, so I just didn't really know. And I ran out on the highway, and the VDOT truck was rolling by not long after I stopped moving. He stopped, topped me off. Everything was good. And then another time I ran out of gas was only about, I don't know, about 2 or 3 years ago. I ran out in Dad's Jeep, and I never did know if the gas gauge was right on that thing or not. Like, you fill it all the way up, it doesn't show but like a half a tank, and it doesn't show completely empty when it is empty. I don't know. I just knew that he filled it up like every other day. He was putting gas in it, so he didn't have to know if it was accurate or not. I started up a steep hill with a low on gas. I meant to get gas in it, and I'm like, well, I don't know how much is in it. That was dumb on my part. I ran out of gas on around 11 out here. I started up the hill, and I'm like, well, I guess I ran out. So I backed up, and, you know, I found a good place down the road to back into. It was really convenient for me. So there you go. There's all my running out of gas. Oh, no. Oh, I want to. I don't know if I should tell that one or not. Now, I ran out of gas in a rental car one time, too. Someone was really not happy at me for doing that. You'd thought it was the end of the world. When I was a True Street coordinator for NMCA, we had a racer in Bowling Green who ran out of gas on the mandatory pre-race cruise and was disqualified. I still joke with him about it. That's a good reason to. Got to have your stuff done. Crystal said it happened about 2 years ago, about this time of year. So much for cooling off by leaving the house just to be stuck on the road because he ran out of gas. Oh, man. You're giving him a hard time about that, aren't you, Crystal? He'll never hear the end of that, will he? I heard the end of it. I heard the end of it for running out of gas really easy. She never went anywhere with me ever again. That was an easy way to never hear about that anymore. Captain Deuce said, I used to run out of gas all the time. The tank was bone dry, and I was like an eighth of a mile to a gas station. Well, why do you do that? Why do you run out of gas all the time? Don't you learn your lesson at least enough to not do it for a few years? I run out of gas about once every 10 years-ish, something like that, which is still dumb. Not all of us can be like Unfinished Project and always have more than 50% of a tank of gas at all times. He doesn't believe in letting his gas tank ever get to half or lower. All right. What's up with that buffer? Mostly Old Parts says, what's the cruising scene like in New Zealand, Dean Stevenson? Do tell. Danny Boy says, I think my 05 GT has water in its tank. It runs out at a quarter tank. Well, drain it and find out. Rob says, I've run out of gas 2 times in my car because the gas gauge doesn't work. Well, I hear you. It's such a pain changing a gas ascending unit or ever getting into that. Oh, I hate working around a gas tank. It's kind of scary to me, actually. Crystal says, Mohawk hasn't learned. He runs out backing up into the garage. Well, if you're going to run out, that's the place to run out. Backing into your own garage, yeah. Dean says, whatever this means, great. The Wallopers earn heels of money. Off-road users, 26 cars, and we were canaried 2 weeks and doomed it. That's one of the most New Zealand things I've ever read, and I don't even know what any of that means. So yeah. Apparently it's so good we Americans can't even understand it. Rob says a 16-gallon Pro Cell. Okay. CRV's got a 14-gallon gas tank on it. Because when I fill it on fumes, it takes 14 and change. I had it really low today, actually. Most of the Old Part says water is heavier than gasoline. If you have a quarter tank of water and the fuel pickups the bottom, it's sucking water and the gas won't run. That's what I'm thinking, Ron. It's the first thing popped in my mind. Colleen says, as long as the odometer works, no one needs a gas gauge. That's not true. I get a lot less gas mileage when I'm towing than when I'm empty. So, what if I lose track or I have different trailer weights? I don't like that whole thing of relying on the odometer. Oh yeah, here we go. Aaron can translate. Well, sometimes we have different dialects of English in here, like people from up north and people from the south. They sometimes have a hard time communicating. I can read just enough Yankee that I can usually figure out what they're talking about. See, and now he's talking about something that sounds like, gang colors or something. Yeah, Dean says a defect notice. Tell us what that is. Okay, Aaron says the Wallopers are the police and Canary is a vehicle defect ticket. Please tell us what that is. I would love to know what this is. 38 says, with the old Chevy, I filled at a half tank on the gauge. There's still more than half in the tank, actually. Sounds prudent. Kangaroo land. Yes, indeed. If I ever decided to go to that part of the world, whichever part of that world I went to, I would have to get one of you guys for a tour guide. And I'd have to ride with you guys because I'd be scared to death to drive over there. I would just instinctively turn onto the incorrect side of the road. A defect ticket when your car is faster than the cop's car. "38 Racing says, when road tripping, my tank is usually full by 100 miles anyways. Danny Boyd suspects he has a floating pickup. Okay. I would think it'd be at the bottom and your gas gauge would have the float, but I don't know. I don't know. Pharaoh says, secret to mileage in a big block Ford is move closer to work. There you go. I live 150 yards from my work, so a tank of fuel lasts me 2 weeks now. That's a good idea. That's if your sanity and your commute and everything. When your car doesn't comply with the law, it's too low, too loud, wrong engine, bald tires, you get a yellow sticker on the windscreen to make you take it to the police or transport department to check. Oh my gosh, that just sounds awful. So you have to undo whatever you did, I take it. Is that what you're telling me? See, here, Virginia has an inspection sticker that used to always be yellow, and now it's yellow. I think they rotate it between red and blue and yellow, something like that. I think they rotate between 3 colors here. Captain Do does his mileage check every tank. I don't do it every tank. I'll do it every once in a while, just out of curiosity. CRV tends to consistently check out around 29, 28, 29. I probably don't get but about 18 towing with it, which is okay. The van is about 16 on the highway. It's, for what it is, I've heard that's pretty good. I do plan to put a 4-barrel on it, though. I have a 318 factory 4-barrel intake, and it is a spread bore. And Dallas is like, you've got to do a quadrajet. You've got to do a quadrajet. You got to do a quadrajet. So I'm thinking, I think I might do the quadrajet on the van. Indecisive Garage, coming to you from Beach Bend Raceway Park, Bowling Green, Kentucky. Currently qualified 8th of 37. One more try in the AM. Please post some content of that, Tim. We'd like to see it. Do a stream from there. Stream from there. That's cool. Win that thing. We wish you a lot of luck with that. Dean says, in America, the Bill of Rights cannot stop the transfer of citizens' right to movement by a vehicle. Oh, you'd be surprised. I know it sounds great, and the sovereign citizens say that they can't be stopped. They're traveling. I get that. But let me tell you, that's not how it works. You get stopped here without a driver's license. You get put in jail. You know, your car can be impounded driving without proof of insurance. Exactly. I mean, our Bill of Rights has been trampled on relentlessly for far longer than I've been alive. So I would like to think you're right, but unfortunately you're not. Not in practice anyway. Our Bill of Rights has not been honored as it should for many decades. Captain Do is asking about the Q-Jet and gas mileage. It actually is really good on gas mileage. The way the secondaries come in, it's a good gas mileage carburetor. That's part of the appeal of it to me. Because I'm traditionally a Holley guy, but Holleys, to get good mileage with a Holley, you got to meter the idle circuitry on them. Because those cars just stay in the Holleys will just stay in the transfer slots on anything that makes any power at all. And if you want to see more on that, you can see more on that on Andy Wood's channel. That's what he did to his carburetors to get a lot of gas mileage out of them. That's how Casper, that truck of his, can get 16 miles to gallon. I've been with him when he's gotten 15. I mean, that's just real world numbers by really good tuning. Danny Boyd says, our world leaders need the Bill of Rights read to them. They know what it is. They know what it says. They just don't care. Kim says, we made it home. Did you get the 66 Dart fixed and drive it home? Danny Boyd is being asked by 38 Racing if the Mustang has the dual sump tank. Andy is the Holley king. Andy's a Holley wizard. I've got two of Andy's Holleys sitting right there. They're great carbs. Danny Boyd confirms. I learn something new all the time. I think it's one of those obscure things I have forgotten. Drove the car home. I guess the tank is leaking again. There you go. I cleaned mine with a wire wheel, really good. Smeared the JB weld around because they rust at the seam. I'm sure that's where yours is rusted. They rust at the seam. I smeared that JB weld on good, and it never leaked again. I'm talking like 20 years later, it didn't leak again. I would never have thought that would have lasted like it did. Danny Boyd says dual sump fuel tank and Fox Mustang is dual sump. That's what I was thinking. The dual sump oil pan on the Fox Mustangs. I remember that. I changed oil on one time and said, what in the world is this? It's just, why does anybody need that? Really? I guess extreme braking and extreme acceleration is the only thing I can think. Captain Do had a friend with a square body, an El Camino, and a Q-Jet, and apparently poorly tuned. They got 7 on the highway. That's poorly tuned. I'm sure it did. Kim says the tank isn't rusty. Leaking around the sending unit. Oh, wow. That's uncommon. Usually those seal pretty good. I either use the Permatex 2 or I use what's called Hylamar when I put on those gaskets. It's non-hardening. I'll usually put that on that kind of gasket. I've been really fortunate with that. I've not had one leak. Mohawk agrees. JB Weld works on a metal gas tank. I'm telling you what, I've had really good luck using it on a metal gas tank. .38 says the dual sump is because the drive shaft passes under the tank. Oh, gosh. Oh, my gosh. That sounds like typical Ford stuff right there. Peckerwood Custom says, did you use the original ring on that gas tank? The metal ones that come with aftermarket cinders are useless. I didn't know there was a... Oh, you mean the metal ring that clamps... Oh, yeah, I always use the factory one of that. But there should be a gasket that goes in there. And I put a little gasket sealer on that and put it down. I never had a problem. And they have that that locking ring you drive to one side. And I use a brass punch for that because I don't want to put a burr on it. I've never had any problem. Dean is talking about ASO here. Millard Epperson here. New Zealanders have always been in the biggest bunch of whatever that means. Chody zealots? Okay, that's wild. That. Oh, okay. Whatever that means over there. In America, a vehicle is a constitutional right, an effect of the 4th and 18th Amendments. I don't know why a vehicle is a constitutional right. And I don't know why it would be of the 4th Amendment. I mean, 4th Amendment is what is, I don't know. I can't draw. I'm drawing a blank on that. 1st Amendment is speech. 2nd Amendment's right to bear arms. 3rd Amendment's quartering troops in your house. And 18th Amendment's a weird one. That's one of those that has the constitutional guarantee on it, but I don't know them off the top of my head. Freedom of travel, but that doesn't mean a vehicle. I mean, you could argue that, but you could also go broke arguing that. They don't mind spending millions of dollars of our tax money taking something to the Supreme Court to get away with stealing a right from us. You know that. Our rights are being trampled. Our rights are at an all-time low here, Dean Stevenson. There is a reality to what the words say, but there's also a reality to how they're being enforced. And I can't go broke trying to do it. I admire people who do. It's surprising how strong and versatile epoxies are. And this is Rapid Transit J. At work, we used epoxy to fill a lot of small rust holes in the tubes of a 30-foot vertical turbine pump, still holding 15 years later. That sounds about like fix the gas tanks, so yeah. Aaron says, we don't have rights anymore there in Australia. Yeah, it's really bad here. We're way past. I mean, I don't know why 4th Amendment applies to what you're saying there because it's unreasonable search and seizure, right? I know here, when asked if they can search your vehicle, the only proper answer is to say no. But then what they'll do is they can get a drug dog to come out, and that drug dog is going to alert on absolutely anything they want it to, of course. I think that's the biggest scam ever in law enforcement. That drug dog is going to alert on anything they want it to, whether it's drugs or not. So then that gives them, then they have probable cause, a reasonable articulation of suspicion to search. They get in your car anyway. I don't, yeah. Johnny C says California refers to driving as a privilege in rule book not long ago, not as a right. Well, California is one of the worst at observing our rights anyway, so I don't really care what they refer to anything as. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me. California has disregarded our Constitution arguably longer than any other state. So I know that what Dean says is true. He is not wrong, what Dean says. And it's a shame that someone from New Zealand knows our Constitution better than most people who live here. But I'm just saying it's not being observed and unfortunately doesn't carry the traction it should. Abuse has become commonplace and very easy to get away with when it comes to constitutional abuse here, just the way it is. And you're talking to a Second Amendment absolutist, so. Captain Do, take care. Dean says, someone there, and Mexican Spec and Steve L have this discussion often. Oh, I bet. Johnny C says, I remember that from Driver's Ed in the late 70s. Johnny C must be considerably older than I. I was born in the late 70s. Tribal weaponsmanship. What is weaponsmanship? I don't think I've ever heard that word in my life. Colleen says, my mom flipped out because my ex refused to search because he felt he was being profiled. Long hair and tattoos, no drugs. Why should anybody flip out because someone refuses a search? I mean, regardless of how he felt, I mean, why allow a search? Cops will ask people if they may search just to do so. I mean, you're just allowing a fishing expedition where you have nothing to gain and everything to lose. There's no good reason to allow them to do that. Virginia Tech police are really bad for that. They love to ask people if they can search the vehicle just to see who's dumb enough to say yes. .38 Racing says, I know driving was a privilege. My dad made sure of that. Yeah, the judge made sure of that when he gave us our first driver's licenses in 1993. Aaron says, I've been profiled most of my life. The bike laws they bought out here made an awesome, fun roadside lots of time, and I didn't ride then. I can't really track what you're saying there, Aaron. They made laws against bikers, huh? I don't know. I just know that every time I've been to Myrtle Beach in the summer, I've always heard on the news they have like bike week down there. And South Carolina doesn't have helmet laws. And every single season they tell us how many have gotten killed there because they decided I'm not going to wear a helmet because there's no helmet law. Like, okay, it was cool. I got that freedom, and some of them die. That's a chance I would not take. I just would not do it. So I don't know. I've never ridden a motorcycle. I would never do it without a helmet. Dizzy's arguing vehicles and travel fall under the pursuit of happiness clause. Well, I think firearms do. I mean, I think shooting a full auto machine gun is pursuit of happiness. Where does that fall under that, Dizzy? Lone Ridge Garage, are we still planning on having the tech training on June 1st? Yes, we're going to have content creator workshop June 1st. And we will be talking about things you can do to get the most out of your YouTube channels and get more subscribers. It's specifically for the No Name 500 guys, but anyone's welcome. Colleen says, I'll say yes because I have nothing to hide. But in my ex's case, I believe they thought they would find something. Yeah, but why? What if they find something that's not yours? Like one of your friends drops contraband in your car. Wouldn't that be terrible? Because then you own it. And all you had to do was say no. Deckerwood Custom says, targeted bike clubs. No one can ride together. No club meetings. If you look suspicious, they would waste your time and make life as hard as possible on every contact with the grubs. Okay. Who's Your Garage says, hello, Friday nighters. Yes, sir. Content Creator Workshop, June 1st, Sunday afternoon here on this channel. What time is that going to be? Generally, we do that at 4 p.m. Eastern. It's typically when we have done that. You too, Negative Buddy. Lighten up. What? I'm just asking. I'm just asking. Where's my part of that in that broad-reaching clause there? What if the cops plant the contraband? Well, you're screwed unless someone catches him. There was a case where this cop got caught on his own body camera planting contraband, and a whole lot of cases got thrown out. But look how many people that burned and went to jail and everything for that. Really crooked. American Hot Rod Association Dallas is in the chat. He says, hey, y'all, drinking a cool one after another 12-hour day working on the daily S10. What a great daily that is. Johnny C says, Mopars and machine guns. I don't own a gun and just drive a Ford. It sounds funny. You should try it. Yeah, I don't have any machine guns. I have some friends that do, though, legally own them. Machine guns are great. From what I'm reading, if it can get through Congress, they're going to take silencers out of the NFA of 1934, which I think is long overdue. That'll be great. If that comes to pass, I want to have them on every long gun I have. The idea of saving your hearing is a great idea. I'm all for it. Colleen's been stopped and searched going on a military base. All is good, but that's a different set of rules right there, though. That's different than being stopped out on a road. Yeah, I know a buddy of mine was stuck at Fort Bragg for 6 years, and he told me, he says, yeah, man, you go in the entrance, and they have the shakedown bay, and they stop every so many cars over there, no matter what. And they don't tell you how many it is. Like it could be every 17 cars, or every 20 cars, or every 11 cars. Just whatever that number is however many they stop. And if you look suspicious or whatever, they'll pull you in there too. But he says if you're going through and that bay is loaded up with cars in line, they're probably less likely to pull you over there. Unless you've got something obvious going on. You know, if someone rolls down the window and they smell weed coming out of the car, you're going to the shakedown line, right? You could build your own muffler they do in Pakistan. Oh, you could. It's just, you know, it wouldn't be legal here. But I'm really hoping that comes to pass. I mean, you think about it, in Europe, of all places where they're much tighter on gun laws, silencers, aka suppressors, have been unregulated for years over there. That's like the only place where Europe is any better on gun rights than here. So it just, we're way overdue for that. Silencers should be removed from the NFA. Who knows? We'll see. I think it still has to get through Congress. So we'll see. Dallas says, I'm replacing the entire front end of that S10. All bushings, ball joint steering. I finished the driver's side and I'm halfway through the passenger side. Yeah, excellent. That's going to be a good investment for you, Dallas. You'll be able to drive that thing so long and it'll stop and steer and all that. Great. It'll be worth it. I did that with the 89 Hyundai one time. I decided I was just going to do everything. And when I did everything, it drove like a new car. It was great. It was worth doing. Wasn't that expensive either when you consider what it costs to do everything now. Danny Boyd said we rolled through Fort Jackson in my dad's Cutlass in 1977. No one stopped us. Well, that was also 1977. Aaron says, watched the documentary on the Mexican border pass, and that was trippy. People walking around profiling drivers and cars. Yeah, I don't know. I've never been to Mexico. Mexican spec can tell you, but I don't know. I don't know what your experience would be like with that. I don't have any. Dean says I'll just use Towley from South Park to muffle your shots. Yeah, a lot of people who are concerned about this bill don't know what an actual silenced firearm sounds like. They're still plenty loud. It doesn't take the sound away like in the movies, not at all. It just keeps you from going deaf, and it keeps them echoing from a distance and so forth. You'll be able to have ranges much closer to subdivisions with the popularization of silencers. It's just long overdue here. And anybody who actually does this stuff and uses that stuff knows. Vintage Adventure Drive says, when I rebuilt the front suspension on my Satellite, I also swapped to drum brakes. Oh, man, you get so many points for that one. That's great. I love it. Now, when you did that, did you swap the master cylinder too? Did you go to a master cylinder that had the residual pressure valve in both sides? Smoke Ridge Sean is in here. Smoke Ridge Garage. Hello. Glad you could make it. Dizzy says, I got lucky. The front suspension was all rebuilt. The guy had it unbolted to sell with the K-frame. Saved it and bolted it back in. On your car, the K-frame was out of it with all the suspension on it? How long have you had your Valiant, Dizzy? Dallas says, you would be amazed with the lack of sound of current submarines. They shoot torpedoes you can't hear until they attack you. Okay. I've never been underwater to know what it sounds like. Vintage Adventure Drive says, I'm still using the Disc Master, but I'm going to swap to the Drum Master soon. It takes 3 pumps to get a decent pedal right now. Well, they should have a residual pressure valve on both ports on a drum brake front car. And so what that does, it keeps a little bit of pressure on there all the time so that you don't have to energize back through all those springs and stuff to stop it. Not to mention that it probably has a smaller diameter piston in it too. So Dizzy bought his Valiant in October 2019. Cool, okay. In boxes. That's the way to buy a car. Tough way to buy a car, but that still sounds cool. I like it. Worked on it 10 months before I could drive it home. Oh, so you did that on site. That's cool. Glad you got a place that let you do that. Mohawk says, when I was stationed at the Yuma Proving Grounds, we were issued our M16s with a clip and sent to guard the border. We were told to shoot anything that came over the border. What happened? Oh, I know. Okay. They gave you one magazine for that? 120 rounder? I mean, to me, I think at least 4 or 5 mags is a loadout, right? Mopar Al is here. Says, hello, everyone. Howdy, Al. Good to see you, sir. Vintage Adventure Drive says, Dizzy's Valiant is one of my favorite cars on the internet. Well, hopefully you'll get to see it in person in Sykeston this year. Al is a great dude. Dallas wants to go see him and catch up. Well, Al sure is a good dude. I can vouch for that. Dean says, I go underwater each time I have a bath. Well, I sure wouldn't. It's scary under there. Mean Street Mopar, howdy. Mean Street Mopar, Content Creator Workshop, June 1st on my channel. 4 p.m. Eastern Time, sir. If you can make it, it'll be very helpful for you. We will tell you what you need to do to seal the deal and finish your race in the No Name 500. This can be the year, with the first every year, that the entire No Name 500 makes it. Wouldn't that be great? 100% graduation from the No Name 500 in 2025. I want to see it. Dean's going to watch out for torpedoes now. I am not going to watch out for torpedoes. Mohawk says that's like 3 p.m. Central Time. That is correct. And 2 p.m. Mountain Time. And 1 p.m. California Time. StreamYard has this obnoxious referral link clogging up my space on here. I wish I could just get rid of that. 1 p.m. Marxist time. I can see that. 8 a.m. on June 2nd if you're in Australia. Dallas says, I was on watch in the Navy when September 11th attacks happened. I was given 20 rounds of deer slugs for my shotgun and was told to fire on any aircraft below 1,000 feet. Wow. So, I wonder if a deer slug would even go 1,000 feet up. I really wonder. A 1-ounce Foster slug in a shotgun, I'm not even sure. I really don't know if it would make it 1,000 feet up. Although, style points for the shotgun, I think that's pretty cool. Vintage Adventure Drive says, I was surprised by Russ before holes. I thought he dropped up then noticed he graduated. I was too. He says he just did a whole lot of asking around for that too. And like what, 10 a.m. Hawaii? Something like that. I didn't know exactly how many time zones over there they are to the west. Big Mike of the Hoopty Barn just got in from the hayfield. Thought he'd stop by for a minute. Howdy, Mike. Hey, Mike, pass the word. Content Creator Workshop, Sunday, June 1st, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on this channel. Dizzy said his wife's back in the hospital. Second time in 2 weeks. Got to go. Y'all take care. Thanks for stopping by, Dizzy. Give her our best. Help her get well. Danny Boyd, I don't think anybody hopes for anything that have to shoot now. I had no idea what was happening. Yeah, anybody who was around back then, which a lot of young people now obviously weren't. I remember when the September 11th thing happened, I was in the engine lab at Biological Systems Engineering at Virginia Tech, and one of the teachers was in the office and said, hey, he said to a few of us who were just standing right there, hey, y'all, check this out. And I walked in the office. He said, that plane just hit the World Trade Center. And we're looking at it thinking that, you know, something had happened with the pilot. The plane just had a crash. We weren't thinking anything about terror attack. We just saw the plane hit a building. We're watching it and thought, wow, that's pretty wild. What a crash. We didn't think anything other than just some kind of accident. And while we were watching, another plane hit. Whoa! And then we're like, oh yeah, this is no accident. But I remember where I was. I was at BSE lab at Virginia Tech, which is now something totally different. It's not even an engine lab anymore, of course. Tech doesn't care anything about that kind of thing. So glad I got to take the class when I did. I don't think it exists at all now. Dallas confirms 120 round of deer slugs, and no, 1,000 foot would not happen with. Of course it wouldn't. No, you'd be surprised how much a shotgun drops in 100 yards with a slug. It's a lot. It is a lot. A slug, typically a Foster slug, is 1 ounce. Danny Boyd said, I had no idea. Yeah, I don't think anybody had any idea. I mean, a lot of people can say they did in retrospect because they see young people now, when they hear about that, their whole life, they've always heard that it was a terror attack right from the beginning. See, like Vintage Adventure drives. So his whole life, he has heard the story from completion. He's heard the story. Those of us who are older, we watched it unfold and had no idea what was happening as it was happening. Just like my whole life, I've heard about Kennedy's assassination as a complete story. It was an assassination, Dealey Plaza, all this stuff. My dad, however, was in the lobby of the West Virginia Hotel, and he just heard the president had been shot. And so he got to hear the story as it unfolded. And this is true for every generation. There's things they're going to remember unfolding live and certain things, they saw later. I might have been just a little kid when it happened, but I remember the Challenger explosion live. Yeah, Colleen says the same thing. Her mother remembers where she was when Kennedy was shot. Exactly. Dallas says, I was at Bender Marine in Mobile, Alabama. My ship was in a floating dry dock, and we thought it would be a target. Yeah, so I know at Virginia Tech, there was a lot of students were sent to cover in their dorms, and they were trying to figure out where the targets were going to be because the Pentagon had just been hit, and a lot of those kids' parents worked at the Pentagon. A lot of these kids of people who work there go to Virginia Tech because it's in state. And they were trying to rush to find out where their loved ones were and what else might be a target. And it was a mess that day. I remember they canceled. I had an African history class that got canceled that day. I remember that, and that was 11 o'clock. And I was one of the ones sent to give word to the teacher what had happened. A lot of people just disappeared from class that day. That engines class was, I think, 9:30. So that all sounds about right anyway. Big Mike says, I remember seeing the newscast when the Berlin Wall fell in 89. I remember that too. I remember seeing that too. Dallas says, I was sent to load the 50 caliber and 25 millimeter crew served weapons, and we were going to take out anything out of the sky. All. Yeah, well, I get it. Oh, wow, they really froze this one up. I don't know what you're talking. I'm not seeing any freezing on here, Danny Boyd. All the planes have been grounded at that point. Yep. Big Brother's watching. He ain't happy. I don't know about that. I'm not seeing any freezing on here. Mohawk says, I was holding the wheel of an old Freightliner coming into Chicago on I-57. Boss called and said, get the truck stopped ASAP. We are at war. Yes. Vintage Adventure Drivers remembers COVID-19. There you go. And then when you have kids, you can tell them all about the COVID-19 thing because they won't remember it. And you can tell them what a ridiculous political mess it was with crazy reaction and all of that. But again, if you lived through the thing as it was happening, you're trying to figure it all out as we went. All right, Colleen is out, and we are seconds from being out ourselves. So with that, I want to thank my mods. As always, appreciate you guys helping keep the peace and post the links and so forth. I want to give one last reminder for our content creator workshop this Sunday on my channel, June 1st, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to help you guys. It's designed for the No Name 500, but everybody's welcome. We're also going to announce our shorts challenge. We did it last year with great results. We're going to do it again this year. So you guys want to check that out. But with that, thank you guys for being here. Don't forget to watch the AHRA Tech Talk Live on Wednesday with Dallas and Professor P. It's a great place to not only ask tech questions, but also any of your Triple Crown rules questions. And with that, we will see you guys Sunday.